Okay, we're going to review heat transfer. What is conduction? Conduction is a form of heat transfer. Between two objects where let's see, they have to directly touch. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this for you. Form of heat transfer by direct contact, we'll say. Okay. So that means it's heat that transfers from one object to another by actually touching it. Okay, they have to directly touch each other. What is an example? Oh, an example would be if you touch a hot stove. Touching a hot stove is an example. Okay. What is convection? It's also going to be heat transfer. We'll say by currents. Heat transfer by the movement of air or liquid, okay, but we'll just say currents of liquids or gases. So the example of this would be water boiling in a pot. We saw some videos of this where we had food coloring and some liquid and we heated it up, right? And we got to see where the food coloring moved to. So you're gonna be seeing arrows like this showing the movement, the direction of the heat, all right? The hot air rises, the cold air then comes back down to the bottom, and the whole process starts over again, and it's the same process in water, all right? An example of convection would be, oh, I don't know. There's lots of them. There's water boiling in a pot. Yes, the pot is actually touching the stove, but we're talking about what's happening inside of the water. Water boiling, the other example we talked about was the second story of a house being warmer than the first story. Why? Because the hot air rises, okay, and you have this current going on. What is radiation? That is also going to be heat transfer by waves, usually radiating out. Okay, so we'll just call that we'll call it waves of heat. Okay, and that's going to be where if you're sitting by a campfire and the heat is radiating out from the fire. Okay, so that's an example. Another example would just be the sun, right? Warming the earth. The heat is radiating down from the sun to the earth. Okay, so those are a couple of examples for you. We'll say warming by a campfire. Or by a fireplace, right? You're not actually touching it. You're not touching the fire. And we're not talking about currents right now. It's more radiating out. If you see little symbols like this that kind of look wavy, that's going to be your symbol for radiating, okay? Radiant energy. The currents like this are going to be your symbol for convection. All right, classify the following as an example of conduction, convection, or radiation. Touching a hot pot, that's going to be conduction. You're actually touching it. A car sitting in the sun, that's going to be radiation. Wind currents, that is going to be convection. Sunlight warming the inside of a car, that's also radiant. The second story is warmer than the first story. We said that was convection. Water boiling in a pot, that is also convection. A campfire warming people, we said that is radiant, and it looks like we lost one right here. Okay, what direction does heat move? This is huge, guys. Heat moves from warm to cold. And what does that mean? That means that if you have an object that is hot and you put it in something that is cooler, the heat is going to leave the warmer object and move into the colder object. All right, that might seem like common sense, but it isn't always. All right, so let's answer some of these questions. If I put a hot blanket on a cold person, what happens to the blanket? Well, the blanket gets cooler, so it loses some heat. We'll say the blanket loses heat. Okay, if I put a hot blanket on a cold person, what happens to the person? The person gains heat. Okay, if I put a hot blanket on a cold person, which direction does the heat move? From the warm blanket to the cold person, right? From the blanket to the person. If I put an ice cube into a hot drink, what happens to the ice cube? Obviously it melts, right? If I put an ice cube into a hot drink, what happens to the hot drink? It gets cooler. Okay, so you could literally say that the ice cube melts because it got warmer. It got warmer, okay? Where did that warmth go? It went into the, the heat went into the ice from the hot drink, okay? Number 14, if I put an ice cube into a hot drink, what direction does the heat move? From the hot drink into the ice cube, into the cold ice cube. Okay, from hot to cold. Show the direction of heat transfer in the following items. All right, so now we're going to look at the temperatures. And we're always going to go from the warmer temperature into the cooler temperature. So what is warmer, 25 degrees Celsius or 15? Well, 25 is warmer, so our heat transfer is going to go that direction. In this one, 5 degrees Celsius or 25, so it's going to go that way, from warmer to colder. In this case, it's going to go from 25 to 10. In this case, it's going to go from 40 to 25. And in this case, it's going to go from 25 to 10. And in this case, it's the same on both sides. So there's really not going to be any heat transfer. It's going to be an equilibrium. Okay.